Welcome to the Voices in Hyperspace. This is the podcast where friends get together and watch sci-fi. We are currently watching Babylon 5 Season 2. I think the last episode, right? This is Comes the Inquisitor.
And we have one more episode after this.
Okay, just one more. Wow.
Yeah.
Almost at the end.
Yeah. At first it comes across like, oh, we're going to take a break from all the serious stuff, and then you just get smacked in the face with some torture. We get to see a couple of the cast's responses to the Narn Centauri War. While this is not the last episode, and it's not the end of the season, because, well, we're near the end, but it's not like the finale, we are immediately confronted with the consequences of the Narn Centauri War, and sometimes what may be a bit of futility from the losing side of a war, and how people look at that. And remember how we talk about nobody ever listens to Jakar?
Yeah.
Well, we get to deal with that a little bit more directly. I would like to say that if you saw Jakar as a failed character, like all of his objectives just are destroyed, this gives you a bit of hope for that character and maybe for the Narn in general. And that's going to be going on in the background because our main story is actually about Delenn, kind of. I think we'll get into it and then we will kind of pick it apart. As we open up, we see that Jakar is doing his speaker's corner thing. He is basically preaching about maintaining a resistance against the Centauri, right? And he's like in a public area. Is that the Zocalo that he's in?
It looks like a part of the Zocalo.
Yeah. And anyone that walks by, he's just like speaking up at them, saying that they need to maintain their resistance and continue to fight the Centauri. And one of the human characters is like, oh, well, we're not like you. The Centauri has nothing to do with us. We're cool. And Jakar basically says, look, we were the first. They're gonna be coming after you next. What do you think is gonna happen? And with this part, I start to feel like his desperation, because I've seen a lot of street preachers. I've seen people on corners and they're like yelling at the top of their lungs, and they're trying to warn humanity. But we have the privilege of seeing that nobody listens to Jakar. Jakar is usually right. He typically is right. And he is most likely right about this. One of the other Narn that he's speaking to is like, Jakar, man, you need to keep that down. Like, what you're doing is kind of foolish. You need to stop this. And Jakar is like, we got to tell people. Like, what's wrong? We got to warn the people. And that Narn tells him, like, look, we got to go. We have a meeting. He's like, all right, cool. As he leaves, we see that, was this the part where Veer is standing in like the mezzanine looking down?
I think so, yeah.
So, okay. So Veer is looking down at Jakar, standing in the mezzanine, and they zoom into him. He's going to become important here a little bit. Delenn is summoned by Ambassador Kosh. They meet each other in a hallway or something. I don't know. You ever notice when Kosh asks for people to see him, they be in like some of the just weirdest places in the station.
You can't be seen talking to people.
Is Kosh Prince? No, Prince didn't. Prince wasn't afraid of people. He was just like,
no. He was kind of an introvert, but he didn't. He could act like an extrovert, but he's technically an introvert.
Yeah. Okay. So that was just...
Sounds like somebody else I know, love.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know. But basically, so Delenn is asking like, okay, Kosh, I'm here. Why did you ask for me? And he explains like, you're going to be tested. And she's like, why am I going to be tested? And then Kosh is like, so I can be sure. knowing what the episode is about, what it is, Kosh wants to be sure about Delenn. And this is what, while my first watch through of this was kind of frustrating, the second watch through recently, it makes a little bit more sense. In the whole context of the episode, it makes sense. And what it is, Kosh is, they're setting up things in the galaxy, and he has all these people in place. And just like me, he thinks maybe Delenn is a little shady, so we got to test her. She says, "How will I know that I'm worthy?" And he explains, if you survive. It's like, what does that mean? Like, what the heck does that mean? And then we don't hear any further conversation. We just go straight to the intro. But that's very ominous, right? So Delenn goes and she's talking with Sheridan. She's like, I need some of these clearances done. And I feel like Sheridan is always asking the absolute correct questions that anybody would ask. Last episode when Garibaldi and all of those people were down there and they introduced him to the Rangers, he looks at Garibaldi and is like, "Why didn't you tell me this?"
Well, he's already had that issue before.
Yeah,
of him needing to know something already that he didn't tell him.
I know, right? So
now he's just going to be like, "Oh, huh." First question,
right? So, and in this instance, Delenn is trying to assure that whatever the Vorlons have going on, they'll be able to get through customs and all that stuff. Like, look, don't bother the Vorlons. And Sheridan's like, well, okay, well, what do they want with you? And she talks about, like, I'm going to be tested. Kosh has to be certain that I am the right person for the right thing.
Like how she was ad-libbing, the Kosh has doubts. And her assistant was like, no, he just wants to be sure. It was like, boy, doubt, bye.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
I mean, if you have doubts, you want to be sure. Like, I don't see where they picking hairs again. Like, they're both right. Like, if you have a doubt, you need to make sure you're making the right decision if you feel like you have doubts.
So I think I agree. I think this is kind of in the vein of who we're talking to. We're talking to the religious caste of the Minbari. And even though, like, we're kind of on the side of the land, we're starting to realize, like, maybe she's allowing her religious self lead everything, because remember, she believes that she has a destiny and there has to be this conspiracy against the dark. And Lanier is trying to kind of keep everything clean and sanitized. It's like, oh no, it's not doubt. It's just that he has to be sure. When you speak to some religious people, the idea of doubt is a very, honestly, it's a taboo topic, because you're supposed to be sure that you're doing the right thing. And in the face of not having evidence or having so much assurance, you lean on your faith. Now I've heard a lot of different definitions of faith. I know from Christianity, faith is the evidence of things unseen. I've heard some skeptics explain, like, faith is what you use to believe when you don't have a good reason, because if you had a good reason, you would just give that reason. You wouldn't use faith, right? And this is kind of what Lanier is alluding to. Like, we're using our faith to believe that not only are we the right people, but Kosh is doing the right thing.
I had heard someone explaining belief to be, basically you not knowing something and getting a bunch of other people that really don't know to kind of crowdsource some comfort in the fact that y'all don't know some shit.
That is one perspective, because I would define it as what someone trusts to be the truth. So some people can trust something to be the truth that they've never seen before. Well, if you asked atheists, they said they believe that there is no God. So they still do have belief. It's just not in the God. It's in contrast to someone believing in God. So, it's what you trust to know, what you're sure of, is what you believe. So
Right.
I can believe that water falls from the sky I can believe water falls from the sky. If I had never seen water fall from the sky, it would be a belief of something I've never seen before. But I can still believe that, especially if I've seen it. Now I really believe it. Kind of like think about like X-Files. It's like Mulder can turn to Scully and be like, "Do you believe me now that you've seen it?" And she's like, "Yeah, okay." Eventually, by like middle of the series, yeah, I believe you now.
Yeah. And my little twist on it also is really, all right, as humans, as sentient beings, we really are leaning on belief and then like degrees of confidence, kind of like what you just said, Mel. Like if we are trying to have something to connect our belief to, a lot of it is just like how confident that this is true. And having a knowledge of the truth is very difficult because you can have a bunch of evidence that's pointing one direction and then that direction turns out to not be it. Now, that happens in science a lot. It's like, oh, we think this is the case. And it's like, after all these tests, it turns out that's not the case. We were wrong about everything. Let's redo it, you know.
Well, kind of like if Kosh has doubts, then he believes that he doesn't truly believe. So them arguing over whether or not he has doubts or believe, they're basically saying the same thing. They're splitting.
I remember recently I was watching some background on J. Michael Straczynski, and he took philosophy. I think he did an undergraduate degree in philosophy. So this is him flexing his philosophy muscle and just getting people to twist their minds around belief, because really, like, even like the philosophical definition of knowledge is justified true belief. So in the end of it, it's just like you don't like know, you just believe that you know. And you
Right.
you have a certain degree of strength and confidence in that belief.
Right. Like
Yep,
people
back to
believe
what
so.
I said. So you need a group of people that have a simple thought process that give you confidence in something that you just don't know. And I think more and more, it's hard for people to accept that they don't know something. And the fear that comes with, the unknown is unfathomable.
Fathomable.
Sure, I'm mispronouncing that, but yeah, like just being okay with I don't know is unacceptable.
Right.
Right.
And that's kind of where it seems like that's where Lanier is, but we'll get there. All right, we're gonna fast forward. Jakar is in his meeting. He is meeting with a black market arms dealer. It starts off as a pretty interesting conversation. Of course, Jakar is going to be he's going to continue to mount his resistance. But this is where he finds out that the weapons that he needs are going to be way more expensive than he expected. And he explains to the arms dealers, like, look, the stuff that we're asking for, we sold to you humans during the Earth Memory War. That's the 10 years prior, right? Mm-hmm. Think about that. So they're asking for old weapons. And the black market dealer is like, yeah, but it's a seller's market.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a seller's market, and he falls short of saying, like, money talks. And
like it's supply and demand.
Yeah,
weapons are in supply right now, so I need to demand more money from you.
Right. and also just kind of think of the state of the galaxy. Mm-hmm. The Centauri won a war. There are several other things going on, like the Marquette are just gone. They just died. So there has to be a rush on available territories, and probably trying to stand up to the Centauri. We'll get to that point in the next episode.
Even without him calling it a seller's market, which is kind of a slap in the face and rude, you could just understand that inflation is a thing. It's still happening. It won't ever stop happening. And what you bought something for 10 years ago just ain't going to be that same price no more. Like, everybody knows that. So I was quite pleased with the threat well, no. Let me get it right, Jakar, my bad. With the assurance of the dismemberment of his entire being.
Yeah.
He were to not come through with what he's about to ask his, surviving people of their life savings in order to acquire.
Yeah. That market dealer, like his voice, like this dude was a straight up gangster, by the way.
Yeah.
He's speaking to a warlord, essentially. Like, just be honest. Jakar's a warlord. And he's talking to him so calm and, like, whispering, too. I think he's more concerned about, like, I don't want people to hear what I'm doing. Y'all need to chill out. And he's like, by the way, today's price is not going to be tomorrow's price. And so Jakar is like, he's like, all right, cool. We'll give you 50% up front and the remainder upon delivery. So he's put in this really bad, like, honestly, just a horrible situation. Half of the money they got is being given to this guy. The Vorlons ship arrives on Babylon 5. Sheridan's in the docking bay to meet the Inquisitor. They clear the docking area, and we hear the Vorlon ship open. Which, let me back up for a second. When the Vorlon ship comes through the jump gate, everybody's like, oh, Ambassador Kosh is here. And they're like, we didn't know he left. And it turns out, no, he didn't leave. It's another ship. Which, we've only seen Vorlon ships more than one Vorlon ships one other time. And that's when they just, like, popped up to blow us some stuff. And left, right? Sheridan meets the Inquisitor. And this scene is set up pretty well. There's silence in the bay. You hear a door open, and then you hear like this tapping and footsteps. Just tap, tap, walk, tap, tap, walk. And the Inquisitor is a human. Not only is he a human, he is dressed in 19th century gentleman's garb with a top hat. And we're all sitting there slack-jawed like, what? So now you got a couple of questions. Like, is this what Vorlons look like? Why is a human in a Vorlon ship? Are we tripping? Is this a shapeshifter? Hundreds of questions just flooding our minds.
Right.
Sheridan introduces himself, and he immediately starts bombarding Sebastian with questions. He says, we don't know much about the situation. We don't know who you are. Where did you come from? Sebastian is like, where's Delenn? Like, he seems pretty just tired of that. He seems immediately tired of the questions like, oh, like, who are you and where's Delenn? And Sheridan's like, wait, we'll get her when we're done here. I need to know about you. And then basically Sebastian's like, okay, if it gets me to my job faster, here's everything you need to know about me. I am from Earth. I'm from England, 1888. He tells him the address that he's from. I was taken to the Vorlon homeworld.
Basically, I'm not answering no more of your questions. This is all you're getting. Where's Delenn now?
Right. And he says, like, I'm in the service of the Vorlons. They call on me when they need me, and they store me when they don't, which I don't like them words. Like, store me?
I think he used a little something more along preserve, but, that's the tit for tat again. They both go in the pantry, so.
Right. Store. You store bread because you're going to use it, like, immediately. You preserve jam because you're going to hang on to that for a little while. Jam and pickles, which that amount now is making me think of Sebastian being put in a giant pickle brine bottle. And there's a point where Sebastian and Sheridan are walking over, like, I guess a common area. And I don't know if it's a circle or whatever, but he's staring down and he's looking. Sebastian is staring down and he's looking at people and he's like, nothing ever changes. And he has this look of disdain on his face, like, ew, disgusting humans. Then we see that Garibaldi and Jakar are having a conversation, and Jakar looks just labored himself. He's just tired. He's like, look, let's not pretend anymore, Garibaldi. You don't ask questions about things you don't know about. So let's just go ahead and fast forward. You're going to ask me about something. I'm going to lie. You're going to catch me in the lie. Now we're at the end. What's the deal? And Garibaldi's like, look, I want you to understand something. I know that you're trying to get some weapons, but I can't have those weapons come through this station because that's going to jeopardize the security. And I got a job to do here. Jakar's like, look, it's true. I'm trying to get weapons. I will not lie to you about that, but we got to do something to help my people. And then Garibaldi, at the end of that conversation, is like, okay, check it out. You can use this other place to transfer illegal goods. It's a friend of mine. He owes me a favor. Just, I'll just set it up. And Jakar's like, why would you help me out? And he goes, because you didn't lie to me.
And I love that even though I don't like Garibaldi and the way he came at Jakar, it was real messy for him to say, you don't want to go up against me. Sir, you ain't shit. You got shot in the back, my boy. Like, ain't nobody scared of you. But I am a fan of giving people rope to see if they'll hang themselves. It's one of my favorite strategies.
Well, and I think it kind of contrasts the Inquisitor too. Because he's like, I already know what's going on, but I'm gonna give you a chance to tell me to see if you're gonna lie to me. And he's like, if I'm gonna help you, I want to be able to trust you. Like, he wants to help, but if he helps the wrong person, then his help goes in vain. So I don't know. For some reason, he doesn't know. I think that was just something they do in the story, because by now he should know if you're going to trust your car by now. He knows him long enough.
Well, I'm not so sure, because remember, I feel like Garibaldi doesn't really trust anybody. He didn't even trust, he barely trusted Ivanova. He was just like, oh, well, I guess her dad is dying, so I won't bat her out. And he did pull guns out on Ambassador Lando Malari. So I guess he looks at it as a day in the life of a security officer. Sometimes you got to shoot ambassadors. I don't know.
That's how his dad taught him how to be a cop. Don't trust anybody. Trust no one.
Which means also don't tell people anything they need to know to help them.
You can trust them. You're getting it.
Yeah. But that's to not trusting them. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you can see, this episode flips around pretty quickly, but the main story is between Delenn and Sebastian. So Delenn meets Sebastian in an abandoned area of the station, and it's set up. It reminds me of the Great Council, or like a 90s music video. I don't know how. I don't know what the best way to describe it is. It's dark.
Well, it also looks. I'm thinking it's the same room that all those other aliens died in.
Right. So they were reusing the set.
The little vault that they stuck them in so they could die.
Yeah. So yeah, they're down in Grade 19. It's a place where they won't be interrupted because Sheridan, made sure of that. And this is where Sebastian starts questioning Delenn. He throws her some shackles. He's like, put those on. And he's like, yeah, by the way, if you take them off, that's an admission of your failure. And that just means you won't be ready for the task that is ahead. And this is where we're starting to not like Sebastian. They're like, what did you just say, jerk? He starts to ask the questions like, who are you? And her immediate answer is, well, I'm Delenn. Like, what? This is easy. And he's like, nope, that's unacceptable. Yeah, she gets a shock for unacceptable she gets a shock for unacceptable answers. And this is again, like, we don't like Sebastian. Mm-hmm. But now we understand, like, if she takes them off, that means she admits her failure. So what is going on? And throughout this whole interrogation part, we're seeing that her beliefs are being questioned, like her beliefs, her intentions. Throughout the series, Delenn always talks about destiny. She underwent her change due to prophecy. She's connecting with Sheridan and the Rangers due to destiny and their supposed battle against evil. And Sebastian is like, no, let's question that. I really need to see something. And the Vorlon question, who are you? That's going to come up a lot. That's the only question that Sebastian even asks her. Mm-hmm. And first she answers with her name, then she tries to answer with her title, where she's from, her lineage, and all of those are just no good, because
don't nobody care about your mama and them.
Right.
Girl, don't you know what you claim to be here for? Better answer. More electricity. Zzz, zzz, zzz.
Yeah, those are, like you said, those are things that were put on you. Mm-hmm. You don't, a title, what is it a title? What, like, quoting Shakespeare, what is it a name? If a rose was called anything else, would it still smell as sweet? Like, what to your core are you?
Right, yeah. And kind of imagine the inverse of this, because Sebastian he's saying, what's in a name? Or what good is a name? Because the core of it is rotten, right? Mm-hmm. And then but this actor, by the way, is doing an amazing job chewing just the walls off of this scene, of every scene that he's in. But he talks about, like, he's interrogated other people before, special people who think that they have destiny, think they were chosen. And he says, all of them have broken. And he says, better to spare others the illusion of false hope.
Agreed.
And he kind of outlines what that false hope is. He's like, you presume that you are on a mission from God. And you think that the universe, you think you're on a mission from God. Okay, cool. You think you have this destiny? You think the universe is on your side? Then that means that you also believe that the universe won't let you die. Which
is wild.
Is wild, because think about it, it's like, uh-oh, did she just choose to have herself murdered by this guy?
Well, that is what Kosh said could happen.
While that's going on, Vier is being followed to an elevator by another Centauri that's begging for a favor. He's trying to be discreet, but he also looks pretty desperate. He's like, come on, man. If you just, do a favor for me, it'll be really cool. And Vier's just like, no, I can't do shit for you. No. Get out of here. And he just rushes on the elevator. Elevator doors close. Veer is trying to take a breath. He opens his eyes, and he's standing right next to Ambassador Jakar.
And how awkward is this? Like, I can't imagine being Veer. He's one of the only ones that's, like, really making any sense and knows to, like, what we're doing is wrong, and been, trying in his limited capacity to do something different. I feel like he could have made some more strides, but I know he really not down with what is happening in this war. And now to be in front of their ambassador when all their people just have, oh my goodness, taken an absolute unethical beating in the process. Ooh. It was real sad.
I just had an interesting conversation earlier this week about being the only one who thinks logically around a bunch of people who only thinks through social construct. It's frustrating. And, like, personally, currently living through that, that's pretty much my life. It's, how do you talk to people like that? Like, I have some people that I keep in my life that I just don't have certain conversations with, because I know it's just going to end in a fight and I'm not going to go anywhere until I figure out how to talk to them without it going to a fight. But some people are just ready to fight because you contrast them. There's no way of bringing the contrast to them without them going on the defense, because they're traumatized for some reason. That's a trauma response. That's how I see that. But how do you
really
fight that
good
trauma?
point.
They have to fight. They have to learn to heal themselves. They have to want to heal themselves before they're going to attempt to listen to me. And that's where Veer is. And that's also might be where Jakar is too, because nobody listens to him either.
Right.
Man, that makes me think of like the last 7 or 8 years of Thanksgiving, where that was like my family's favorite holiday. And then I became vegan, and it's just like, oh my God. I don't even want to go, because even if I'm able to go and enjoy the gathering of my family, they can't let go of the conversation of what I am or am not eating. Your commentary made me think about a reel I saw earlier today where a donkey and a tiger were arguing over what color the grass was. And the donkey goes to the lion, who's the king of the jungle, and is like, yo, isn't the grass blue? And he's like, that's what you believe. And then he's like, well, punish the tiger for, not believing. And so the lion gives the tiger a punishment, not being able to speak for 5 years. And when the donkey goes away all happy and shit, the tiger is like, yo, before I take this punishment, why are you punishing me when you know the grass is green, right? He's like, it is true that the grass is green, but what good is it for you to be speaking if you're going to waste your truth and logic arguing with a jackass?
Oh God, yeah.
Jeez. Yeah. That's great. So Veer, he turns to Jakar, he's like, I'm sorry. I tried to tell him, but nobody listens to me. They never listen. And Jakar does, I think, the most unhinged thing that any character has ever done. He holds out his hand, pulls out a knife, cuts open his own hand, and it starts bleeding and it's dripping. He's like, dead, 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 dead. Like, Veer is shocked. He does not know what's happening. He's like, what is this? And then you also have to think, like, am I gonna die? But but it's just the blood. And Jakar says, how do you apologize to them? And Veer says, I can't. And Jakar's like, then I can't forgive you.
Yeah, I had a daydream that he smeared his blood on his face. That didn't really happen, but I was like, yeah.
Yeah, that's that shows just how deep the hurt that the Narn are feeling and how Jakar internalizes it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where he does this display of horror in front of Veer. And Veer has nothing. He's just terrorized.
Right.
Because that's what I wanted to say. It's the idea of a person who is inside of the Imperial core. This person is thinking logically. This person has empathy for the people that the Empire is hurting, but he has no power. Mm-hmm. So all he does is post memes. He trolls people. He wears
his thoughts and prayers.
He pins a flag to his lapel or puts it on his name, his username. Nothing. And it's like, I tried to tell him, nobody ever listens to me. It's like, how does that help the people who are actually dying? What good is it?
Oh,
All right, moving on. Sebastian is in the process of torturing Delenn. And he's just... Look, y'all just watch the show, because all of the lines that are being delivered by this actor are great. He accuses Delenn of dreaming dreams of glory, and that's what he is saying she means by destiny. And they're going back and forth with this, and he does say something that I thought was really cool. He is, are we destroyers of dreams or protectors of the common good? And I think and I'm only throwing in my little commentary, I think he's saying this in that he's not trying to... like if he destroys her dreams, that's kind of a nothing. That's nothing, right? Because what are her dreams upholding? Like, is it upholding like the status quo? Because he says, are we destroyers of dreams or protectors of the common good? What is the common good? What does that even mean, right? Mm-hmm. And he's torturing her, and he says, okay, you have your beliefs. Go ahead, call out to the universe. Call out to the universe. Let's see if it responds. So they are quiet for a beat, and we hear nothing. His silence. And I think all of this is to challenge her. Like, from time to time, she has like those quotes that are kind of existential and mysterious or whatever. And this is to challenge that, because it's like, does that even mean anything? When you say that you're part of the universe wants this, what does that even mean? And he asks her, why are you here? And she says, we all have a destiny, but we don't always know why. I believe that I'm meant to be here. And he asks her, like, but have you considered that you might be wrong? And she goes, yes. So she considers, like, okay, all of this stuff that I believe in, I could be wrong. This could mean nothing to me. And this is where Sebastian is like, there is hope for you.
We can give you a 10-minute break, little baby.
Yeah. So remember what I said, that Straczynski studied philosophy? This is part of it. His whole, like, if we look at the classic Greek philosophy and Descartes, I can't remember what year that he was around, but a lot of it is questioning what people know, what they can be sure of. And the truth is, you cannot be 100% assured of anything. You can be wrong. That's what many philosophy majors will conclude, because it's basically like your confidence in knowledge itself. Like, what do you know, and to what degree you have confidence. Epistemology, basically, like, what is your theory of knowledge?
Yeah. And then, like, knowledge is always constantly changing. In Eastern philosophy, if you know that the universe is always in constant transition, then what you know today may not be the truth tomorrow. So there is no such thing as certainty. And I also want to add to that, when he asked her, how are you sure that this is your destiny? What if the world says that you're wrong? And for my personal sanity, I have to remember that what the world's opinion of me is none of my business. Like, what I feel like is my destiny is what I'm going to do with me. And it's torture to live your life according to what society wants you to do. But the majority of people do that because they live by social standards. Social standards and stereotypes and all other stuff that are technically social standards, which means they're not coming from within to say who they are. They're looking outwards to say who they are.
Yeah. And I thought that part was really good, because when Delenn says, well, then the world is wrong, like, that's a brave thing to say, because when you are putting your individual self against the masses of the world, you're facing kind of like an insurmountable challenge, and that can be very difficult. And just to kind of like reveal this part, that's what Sebastian is challenging in and of itself. Like, does she think that she's so important that what she's doing is defying the world? Like, what is this, arrogance, or what is there something more? And yeah, just like Sunday said, she gets rewarded 10-minute rest, which, what the heck? Anyway, Jakar is trying to organize the Narn resistance. He explaining to the other Narn on the station that the weapons are going to be more expensive than they had planned, and that they will just have to make sacrifices. And these Narn are just not happy. They're like, what? Like, this is ridiculous. And they're like, Jakar, we need you to step aside. We need somebody else to lead, because you're not getting it done. And Jakar's like, what are you talking about? It's like, we kind of feel like somebody else might be able to get what we need. Somebody else might be better. And Jakar asks, like, okay, so what would I be able to do? Like, am I incapable? It's like, it's not that we're questioning you per se. We're questioning your ability to get things done. And they're like, look, if you can get a message through the homeworld, we might be able to, keep you as our leader. And so now we gave Jakar a mission. He has to do the impossible once again, figure out if he can get a message to homeworld to maintain his influence over the Narn on the station. Real quick notes, when Delenn she finally confronts Sebastian about his methods, because he's berating her, saying that she's malfunctioned, that she's a fool. And then she lashes out at him, saying, like, it's better to be what I am than what you are. You lash out at anyone who makes a difference because you are a failure. And she criticizes him for taking joy in torturing people. And this is important. It's going to come up at the end of the episode. And she says that other people's failure remind him of his own failure. And Sebastian is like, cool. And he just continues to torture her. And he tells her, conform, be a nice Minbari, which, that's an interesting thing to say, right?
Be a good Minbari and conform, because that's what y'all do, don't you?
Yeah.
You just live based on whatever they throw you in.
Yeah. Jakar, after he's getting his mission, he goes straight to Sheridan. He's like, look, Sheridan, I need your help. I need to get word from Narn. And Sheridan's like, what you asking for is really difficult. We haven't heard anything since the Narn. We haven't heard anything from the Narn since the Centauri took over. And Garibaldi offers the zero help that he always offers. He goes, in a couple of weeks, official channels will be open. And Jakar's like, well, that's not soon enough. Like, I need something now so I can maintain my leadership here. And Sheridan's like, okay, I'll see what I can do. When Jakar goes away, this is kind of a cool thing. Sheridan is like, I don't know, man. All this stuff is going on. Maybe it's time for them to get ready. And Garibaldi's like, who? He goes, the Rangers. Like, the Rangers? Like, they've never done this sort of thing before. It's like, well, they about to. And so,
what are they there for? Or are they supposed to be getting information?
Yes, they are.
That's their job.
That's their job.
Like, why is Garibaldi saying he was a ranger longer than Sheridan? Should you know this? But I guess like at this level they haven't done it, but technically they've done it.
And that's why Garibaldi's not in charge of the Rangers.
And with considering the fact that Earth is still friends with the Centauri,
right?
Like maybe they could get through, but they have a better chance of getting through because humans. I'm going to think that. That's what I'm choosing to think.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's good that for one, Sheridan's just a great character. He asks all the right questions, and he immediately thinks the right thing. It's like, well, if we can't go through official channels, we can't wait. Well, shoot, why don't we use the tools we got? The Rangers are right there. Garibaldi's like, they've never done anything like this before. It's like, well, they need to get ready because we got to do this right now. And honestly, that's a good test for them.
There's always a first time for everything. We can't always do things we've only done before.
Right.
We'll never do anything if we...
Right. So we have a brief little moment where Sebastian is just torturing Delenn, shocking her, and Lanier wanders into the gray sector, which I think is a little weird, right? Lanier finds Delenn laying on the ground, and he's like, what the heck is going on? This is insane. We got to stop this. And she's like, no. We can't stop this, right? And he's like, we got to get you out of here. And she's like, this is probably part of the test. And she sends Lanier away. She's like, I need you to get out of here. So Lanier, he gets out. He runs away, which I'm a little suspicious about this. I think she was left unattended because they probably knew Lanier was by, because he goes straight to Sheridan, explains like, yeah, Delenn's being tortured. I've never seen this before. This is not what we agreed to. And it's like, you got to do something. And so Sheridan is like, all right, cool. So he goes down. He intervenes in Delenn being shocked by Sebastian. You know, he's asking her all these questions. And when he reveals himself to Sebastian, Sebastian is like, finally, what did he say? The other part of this whole thing appears. And I'm like, okay, so you went after Delenn, but you really wanted Sheridan? This is intriguing. Because Kosh didn't say anything about Sheridan being tested. He only talked about her. But this is actually kind of cool. It makes sense. Like, they lured him into that.
Yeah. But, like, considering Sheridan, like, he's military. Like, putting him through torture wasn't going to do anything.
Right.
I like it from the perspective of you went out and chose your, I don't want to call him her boyfriend, but they giving boyfriend, girlfriend vibes. You didn't went and pick this man. You didn't come and talk to me or have a community meeting and we decide that we want him to be a part of our team. So both of y'all about to take this smoke because I have doubt on both parts.
Yeah. So, and this is where we see Sebastian use powers we never saw before. He basically shoots like a fireball through the floor and it blasts Sheridan. He locks Sheridan into the shackles, and now he is interrogating both Delenn and Sheridan, just like shocking them both. And again, the questions. He's questioning Delenn on her, on what fate decided and all this and that. But then when he's talking to Sheridan, he's asking some deep questions like, okay, what are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice your friend? Are you willing to sacrifice your family? And he starts going in deeper and deeper, like into the person, like truth. What do you think about your God? Like your belief, all of that stuff. While that's happening, Delenn, she just cries out and she goes, stop. Like, don't torture him, torture me. You just leave him alone.
Was I the only one that noticed though that they were using a lot of slavery whips?
I mean, you can say
hitting him.
You can say that, yes, but it's the torture. And yes, slaves were tortured, but like the whole thing about torture, that might be something we'll have to spend some time talking about in a side mission.
Yeah, and the way that slaves were tortured were ways that Europeans were doing to each other before they found us. They didn't come up with new techniques just for us.
Right. Right.
That's why they were okay with it, because they were already living through it for generations, for centuries.
Yeah.
And it's like, why y'all doing this?
Yeah, they were torturing each other for like religious reasons too, which makes it even worse. Because the whole thing was like, we need to torture your body before you die, because we need to make sure that you're not having a good time on Earth, because you're going to go to purgatory, where there is no torture. And I'm like, what?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
After Delenn sacrifices herself for Sheridan, Sebastian is like really intrigued. He's like, are you saying you're doing this willingly? She's like, yes. He's like, you're going to put aside your destiny, your fame, your purpose. And she's like, I put it all away because this is what life is all about. One life, one person. And Sebastian goes, a mutual admiration and sacrificial society. And he ends the interrogation and lets them both go. It's like, what?
Loved it. Because I hate the question of which is more important, the one or the many. It's like both.
Right. But with the many, there's glory. There's status. There's social construct, because you have fame in a way for saving them. Like, them two saving each other is kind of like, yeah, okay, we respect each other even more, but like they don't get any social praise from it. And he wanted to find out if they were going to do the right thing because they're just willing to do the right thing, versus like someone else we know who does the wrong thing because social constructs.
Right. And Delenn and Sheridan help each other up. They go towards the door. Sebastian meets them there, and he's like, "You passed." And they're like, "We don't get it." And Sebastian, he does this nice, beautiful monologue, but he says, "How do you know the chosen ones? No greater love hath a man than he lay down his life for his brother." And he also says, like, in the dark where no one can ever know. Basically, they were isolated, and like the deepest part of each of them was being interrogated. And they had to figure out, the Vorlons had to figure out, is there a secret part of this that is insincere? Is there a secret sense of pride of saving the galaxy? Is there a secret sense of self that is going to be seeking fame, recognition, all of that stuff? Like, are you going to benefit from this in a way that shows that your belief was really selfish? Mm-hmm. And this is what's interesting, though. Delenn's sacrifice was selfish in a way, but it wasn't for greed, it wasn't for fame, it wasn't for glory, it was for love.
Yeah.
She couldn't stand to see Sheridan being hurt, and she had to figure out a way to stop it at all costs. And all of that involved her turning away from her sense of destiny, her sense of fate, her belief in the universe, all of that stuff. She had to like put all of that stuff away, which is important to the Minbari. It is important. She had to put all of that away. It was the person right in front of her who mattered the most. And Sebastian tells them, when darkness comes, know this. You are the right people in the right place at the right time. And that's interesting. That's pretty interesting. Because we know we have this quote-unquote conspiracy of the light. This whole army's being set up. And the people have been put in place for a reason. But we're kind of like digging into the motivations of the characters. All of our characters are flawed. But the flaw is not that they're selfish. The flaw is that they're damaged.
Yeah. And
their damage wants them to have a better future, a better universe. So they're not trying to rule the galaxy. They're not trying to rule the world. They're trying to make it better at least one more day, right? So they get loose. We see this cuts to a scene of Sheridan sitting in his chair, in CNC, and he's really like deep in thought. And this is where he's like, Ivanova, I need you to do a search for me. Can I make a comment on this? They never talk to the computer really in this series. They talk to other humans to perform duties that the computer would.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess that's part of her job too. Like, she would definitely be involved with intelligence, so that kind of makes sense. And he explains what they need to look for. She's like, it's going to take some time. And he's like, that's fine. I thought this was good memory too, because I don't know how long the Inquisitor was there, but Sinclair remembered all the details that he was given, in spite of him being beat up and tortured. Right.
Like I said, he's trained for that.
Yeah. We see a happy ending to Jakar's storyline. We see that the Narn are gathered and they're watching a video from Homeworld. And I didn't catch this the first time, and maybe y'all can correct me, but the Narn who is doubting Jakar, that is his family telling him that everything is okay, that they are okay.
Yeah, because he told him that you need to get a message from my family. If I get a message from my family, we will believe you.
And he got a message from his family.
Yeah, just his family.
And I just appreciated when you were just talking about the Vorlon needing to know and whether they're going to get one more day closer to, a better existence in this dimension, I guess I can call it. When Sheridan was asked to get the message from those family members, it was like, well, communications will be back up in about a month. And it's like, well, we got this military unit that's ready to like go to work. It's time for us to go to work.
Yeah.
And that is doing a similar thing, because I was quite confused as to if the Vorlons are so powerful and you can swoop in and snatch Sebastian's butt up off of Earth and stop him from murdering people, why didn't they step in and stop the
war?
Yeah, I was trying to remember the alien species, but try to stop that. Or if you're powerful enough to stand up against the shadows, like, why are you standing to the side and letting all this other shit happen? And Sheridan's like, look, I am tired of being on the sidelines. We need to, activate and do something. And I was very happy that he, made a step in that direction to, like, let's start taking some action. Like, let's get up off of our butts and do something.
Yeah. And that's a really good point, because all of that was happening. Like, they activated the Rangers, the secret. Well, I guess they are a covert army. They did that while Sheridan is being tortured. And one of the questions is, like, are you willing to sacrifice people's lives? And really, he is, but it's not for fame, it's not for glory, it's not for himself. It's to do the right thing. And that's another one of those philosophical things. Like, you got to risk lives. People are going to die. But the objective is, let's do the right thing. And he does. And in this case, G'Kar maintains his leadership on the station. He's not being replaced. We're at the end of the episode. Sheridan catches up with Sebastian on his way out of the docking station, and he's like, you know what, I looked into you, and this is what I found out. Yeah, you've been to Earth, and the date that you gave us is pretty interesting, because the very next day, you know what, the day after that was the end of a string of murders on the east side. Remember how Sheridan likes conspiracy theories?
Uh-huh.
In the 90s, there was always a conspiracy theory where people were like, oh, we know the identity of Jack the Ripper. So we have to think that that's kind of the vein that Sheridan is on. And he explains, like, I think I know who you are. Or, I think I know what you are. And we get another beautiful monologue from Sebastian where he talks about who he used to be. He used to do terrible things. He said the world needed a message, and he believed that he was the one. He was the one that was on a mission. He was the chosen one. His was a mission about morality to the world.
Yeah. And
the Vorlons found him, and they were like, nah, don't do that. And he was chosen by the Vorlons, all right. And the Vorlons are torturing him now because he has to relive who he is all the time. But when Sebastian,
he's over it because he see the way that the people were acting on Babylon, and he like, ain't shit changed. Y'all still a hot mess.
Yeah. But that's the thing. His whole thing is he is always judging. He's always judging humanity, and he's the one that thinks that he's special. He's the one that thinks that he's the chosen. He's the one that thinks that he knows the right way. He thinks that he should have glory, all of those things, but in reality, he's a monster. So the Vorlons chose his monstrosity and twisted it to their purposes, and he has to weed out the real monsters who could be potential candidates for this army of light.
Yeah, because to a very small degree, like most serial killers, they have this one like moral reason that they apply to their killing. So his was actually fitting directly into what the Vorlons needed. So they just used him. And my weird analogy on a very smaller level would be like if you had a kid in your class that was a tattletale that's constantly in everybody's business and telling you what they were doing, you could make them the hall monitor.
Okay.
That's pretty much what they did to him. Because considering how powerful and ancient and wise the the Vorlons are. Like, we humans are little kids to them.
Yeah. And Sebastian makes a statement too that he hopes that the Vorlons will let him die one day. And Sheridan's like, I think that's a good idea. So we end the episode with Sebastian sharing that his name is Jack, which is, as I said before, he's Jack the Ripper. Expertly acted in this episode.
Agreed. He did an excellent performance.
And I like how they went with the theory that Jack the Ripper was the detective that was on the case that disappeared.
Ooh.
And it kind of fit into, because it is, I've seen this in like cop dramas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where a rogue cop starts like being
a murderer?
Becoming a murderer or a vigilante because they feel like what they're doing as a cop is not enough.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably what he was. He was the first to be noticed of doing that.
Wow.
Because it's way too obvious. Like, you leaving bodies out for people to find and stuff.
Right.
And part of that is ego, too. Like, I want people to know that I'm doing this, but at the same time, I can't let people know that I'm doing this, because if it was okay to do it, I'd beat the government.
So, yeah. I thought the themes of the episode were really great because they're exploring sacrifice, leadership, the importance of acting for the right reasons. That was kind of what Lanier foreshadowed at the very beginning. Like, a person can do all the right things but for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. And if we contrast that with Sebastian as Jack the Ripper, like, maybe he thought that he was doing all the right things, right? But murdering people is actually the wrong thing. And also the reasons, because he had a sense of justice, of right and wrong, and he wants to impose that. He had his own destiny. He was like, I'm gonna make society better. And it's like, you're gonna make it better by murdering people? And that was the question to Delenn. Like, are you gonna try to make the universe better by murdering people or by letting people be murdered? Like, what are your motivations, lady? And same thing with Sheridan. Like, are you gonna be a utilitarian and start just like abusing your power to achieve this end? And it turns out like they're both going to sacrifice themselves for the right thing. And the right thing apparently is each other. But I guess also because there's no fame in it, there's no glory in it, it's very undignified.
Yeah. And also, she protected Lanier because she could have let him stay there and take care of her, or she could have ran off with him. But she's like, no, go. I'm in the middle of this. She vented to him, of course. Mm-hmm. But like, oh no, you can't be here because despite how horrible it is. And I think that's probably part of the reason why she has to vent to him as she's explaining to him. You gotta go. You can't be in this. I don't want you in this. Just go. It's horrible. Which is kind of sweet.
Yeah. And so we got to see some really cool stuff. I would like to thank you all for joining us for another edition of Voices in Hyperspace. You can catch Voices in Hyperspace and all your favorite streaming services. Be sure to get onto our TikTok and our YouTube. Like, share, follow there. And also join the conversation over on Facebook at Voices in Hyperspace Group. You can find me, Legendary Black Lion, on Instagram at Legendary Black Lion. And where can they find you, Mel?
On melsrebellion.com. You can find me on TikTok as Mel Asylum. And you should be able to find Mel's Rebellion everywhere else that I happen to be.
Fantastic.
I'm not on
You can find Sunday at a poker table. Bye.
Bye. And we'll see y'all next time. Peace.